So what I'm about to show you is maybe the closest thing to a miracle that I've experienced while working here. Because what if I told you that this frequency response belongs to a tiny compact speaker with only a 4-inch bass driver? Well, I know that if you'd shown me this a couple of years back, I would have called bullshit on you right away, because there's no way a tiny 4-inch speaker can play that flat all the way down to 40 Hz. I mean, most floor standers can't even do that. Well, the speaker in question is Radiant Acoustics Clarity 4.2. And it's here, baby! While Radiant Acoustics is still a fairly new name in the hi-fi world, the people that created the speaker are among the most knowledgeable and influential in modern hi-fi. Among others, Peter Lyngdorf, the founder of HiFi Klubben, Dali, Lyngdorf Audio and co-founder of PURIFI. We have Henrik Reinholsen, the CEO of Nordic Hi-Fi, and Jens Schønemann-Paul, who is the man behind several of Bang & Olufsen's best-selling active speakers. Clarity 4.2 is Radiant Acoustics' second speaker and is in most ways a scaled-down version of their debut speaker Clarity 6.2, which has received worldwide praise for its huge sound compared to its size. It's made in a two-way design using PURIFI Yoshindi 4-inch woofers and an AMT tweeter, in addition to two passive Yoshindi radiators as well. Let's take a little closer look at these woofers, as they are a big part of why these tiny speakers can play as deep as they can. I'm sure you've noticed by now that something looks a little bit out of the ordinary here. This unique rubber surround is a hallmark sign of PURIFI bass drivers and allows the woofer to move much farther than a normal woofer without distorting, because the breaking effect of the surround is extremely uniform across the entire travel range of the membrane. On the inside, there's also several revolutionary but less visible improvements, from how the voice coil is wound to the materials used and even the surface profile of the membrane. All in all, these technologies from PURIFI add up to make this tiny driver have likely the lowest distortion in the world for such a long excursion and small size, which in turn allows it to move a lot more air than other 4-inch drivers and thus play extremely evenly all the way down to 40 Hz. And instead of using bass ports to extend the bass response, Radiant Acoustics opted for these passive Yoshindi bass radiators to save the same purpose, while also eliminating port noise. By the way, the radiators are also real PURIFI elements that are custom tuned for these specific speakers. Very cool! I think this tweeter also deserves a little attention. It's what we call an air motion transformer, or AMT tweeter, designed by Lyngdorf Audio and produced by the Danish Dali. You may think it looks like a normal ribbon tweeter, but it actually works a little differently. Instead of using a flat strip or ribbon that's moving back and forth, the membrane instead looks sort of like an accordion. And when it's powered, it expands and contracts to produce vibrations. This small difference is important because this motion gives the AMT tweeter a much better vertical spread than on a ribbon tweeter, actually more similar to that of a dome tweeter. Yet, compared to a dome tweeter, the AMT has significantly lower mass and can therefore move much faster, improving resolution and airiness in the treble. AMT tweeters are most commonly found in ultra high-end models because of their performance, but here I'm looking straight at one in a pretty affordable speaker. What? One difference to note here from the bigger brother Clarity 6.2 is that this smaller model does not have a waveguide in front of the tweeter. I'll get back to how this might impact the sound in a bit. But before that, I also want to talk a little bit about how the speaker sounds in general. You might have already gotten the memo, but holy crap, these speakers are unlike any other such compact speaker I've ever heard. The first thing you notice is of course how deep they go. It's actually kind of crazy. The bass is full and punchy, actually pretty fast and dry as well. It doesn't seem like the passive radiators are adding any kind of audible slowness. The treble is also extremely well balanced and actually seems to be a little bit more backwards leaning or warm than the bigger brother Clarity 6.2. But still, the soundstage is incredibly accurate and I'm able to get a super strong center image. By the way, don't be fooled by how much I talk about bass in this video. The resolution and clarity is absolutely approaching high-end performance, just like in the Clarity 6.2. I did, however, notice that Clarity 4.2 seemed to require a little bit more of a toe-in than 6.2. This is probably because of the lack of a waveguide in front of the tweeter here, which on the larger model gives the frequencies above around 7 kHz a wider horizontal spread. Overall, Clarity 4.2 sounds warm, punchy, detailed, and again, I have to state this, completely nuts compared to its size. But speaking of size, there is an elephant in the room that we should address. Although Clarity 4.2 definitely has the sound of a much larger speaker, it does not have the same headroom. This means that it's not the best match for you if you have a large room or like to play super loud without the help from a subwoofer. In the end, it's simply a physical trade-off, as such small speaker as this can never play both deep bass and super loud at the same time. You can only pick one. Because of this, the prime use cases for these speakers are definitely smaller listening rooms as near-field monitors or not too big living rooms, where you want the fullest possible sound out of the smallest possible speakers. Of course, you can easily get to reasonable listening levels even in larger rooms, but the volume limit is definitely a little lower than on other similarly sized speakers, where of course you won't get the same bass output as Clarity 4.2. One other factor to be aware of is that the sensitivity on Clarity 4.2 is pretty low at around 81 decibels at 4 ohms. This means that you have to turn your amplifier up quite a bit more to achieve the same volume as with many other speakers. This is also simply a physical trade-off of having such a small speaker play down to 40 Hz. So when looking at amplifier pairings, it might be important to get at least a halfway beefy amp so that you can get to your preferred volume. Just to be clear, this does not mean that this is a difficult to drive speaker, which would imply that its impedance swings so much that the amplifier struggles to control the drivers. They are in fact pretty kind to the amplifier, never dipping below 3.6 ohm at any frequency. So it's just the low sensitivity that requires some extra power. For those who want some more specific recommendations, here are 3 amplifiers that I've tested that pairs well with Clarity 4.2. Staying true to Peter Lyngdorf's involvement in the making of these speakers, here is the Lyngdorf TDAI 1120. It's not the most powerful amplifier in the world, but Lyngdorf's room correction, room perfect, makes it an obvious choice for basically any higher-end compact speaker. Any unwanted resonance from your room is taken care of and you're left with a much more true and uncolored sound. You also get custom voicings on top of Room Perfect, as well as network streaming, a TV input, and much more. For those a little bit more on a budget, I can recommend the NAD C700 V2. It is a powerful and capable streaming amplifier and part of the Blue Sound multi-room ecosystem. Here you also get a TV input, network streaming, and more. And if you still want room correction, you have the possibility to upgrade with an optional Dirac Live license. It doesn't sound as refined as the Lyngdorf amp, but definitely value for money. Lastly, for those that don't struggle with the room acoustics and simply want the best possible sound quality, Hegel H95. This is an analog Class AB amplifier that focuses on sound first. With their patented sound engine technology, this amp avoids the classic downsides of analog amplifiers such as distortion and poor damping factor, and instead gives an amazing control over the bass drivers and a deep and defined soundstage. And it does have network streaming too. Definitely recommend. That was Radiant Acoustics Clarity 4.2, aka possibly the most capable tiny speaker to ever come through this door. If you're looking for the best sound from as small of a footprint as possible, then this is definitely a model to check out. Feel free to visit your closest HiFi Klubben shop for a proper demo. I'll see you there. Bye.
Bye bye.